Eddie Van Halen wasn't just a guitar hero. He was a force of energy, creativity, and joy that electrified every stage he stepped on. Fans loved his infectious grin, mind-blowing solos, and playful humor. But behind that exuberant exterior, Eddie carried feelings few ever knew about. For decades, he quietly held a list of 6 guitarists who had deeply hurt him, men he had once looked up to, studied obsessively, and even idolized. Some had dismissed him, some humiliated him, and others crossed personal lines he couldn't forgive. These weren't mere rivalries. They were moments that left lasting marks on the man behind the music. Today, we're uncovering the stories behind Eddie's private grudges and the heroes who let him down. 1. Eric Clapton, the hero who broke Eddie's heart. This paragraph delves into the deeply personal side of Eddie Van Halen's relationship with Eric Clapton. From a young age, Eddie idolized Clapton, absorbing Cream records and mimicking every lick, phrase, and tonal nuance. This illustrates not just musical admiration, but also the formative role Clapton played in shaping Eddie's style and musical identity. The turning point came when Clapton publicly critiqued Eddie's playing, stating that while Eddie was technically skilled, his music lacked soul. For Eddie, this was more than criticism. It felt like personal rejection from someone he deeply admired. The backstage encounter in Los Angeles reinforced this disappointment, as Clapton's lack of acknowledgement transformed admiration into quiet resentment. This paragraph humanizes Eddie, showing that even someone widely celebrated and talented is vulnerable to the emotional effects of rejection, particularly from those they idolize. It underscores how hero worship can turn bittersweet when the hero fails to meet expectations, and it sets the tone for understanding the emotional depth behind Eddie's secret list of grudges. 2. Ritchie Blackmore, the Cold Stare. Ritchie Blackmore's story highlights the power of subtle, nonverbal communication in shaping emotional responses. Eddie approached him with excitement and admiration, only to encounter a cold, blank stare that instantly communicated dismissal. This shows how gestures, or the absence of them, can carry emotional weight equal to words, especially in professional and creative settings. Later, when Blackmore refused to discuss guitar tone at a festival, it cemented a pattern of disregard that eroded Eddie's initial admiration. Public comments criticizing Eddie's style added to this perception of dismissal. This paragraph captures the psychological impact of repeated microaggressions, demonstrating that respect from peers and heroes mattered deeply to Eddie. His sensitivity to subtle slights highlights his emotional depth, emphasizing that grudges aren't always sparked by overt conflict, but by patterns of neglect. Eddie's response to Blackmore reflects a universal truth. Human beings, even musical geniuses, crave acknowledgement, and the absence of it can turn admiration into frustration, hurt, or resentment over time. 3. Joe Perry, the rock star who pretended Eddie didn't exist. This paragraph explores the emotional toll of being treated as invisible by someone Eddie admired. On the 1978 tour, Eddie expected camaraderie with Joe Perry, but instead, he faced deliberate neglect and avoidance. Perry's refusal to acknowledge even simple gestures, like nods or conversation, transformed interactions into a symbolic rejection, demonstrating how subtle social cues carry profound meaning. Eddie's stunned reaction illustrates his vulnerability and human need for recognition, even from those he admired. Over time, this silence left a deeper mark than overt criticism could have, highlighting how being ignored can feel more painful than confrontation. Though Perry later acknowledged Eddie's talent, it was too late to undo the emotional imprint of the early encounters. This paragraph emphasizes that grudges can stem from neglect rather than hostility. it humanizes Eddie, showing that his sensitivity to social recognition was as important as his musical skill, and that emotional validation from peers can profoundly influence one's perception of success and self-worth, even for someone as iconic as Van Halen. 4. Randy Rhoads, the rival who hit Eddie where it hurt. The paragraph highlights the delicate balance between admiration, rivalry, and professional stress. Randy Rhoads, hailed as a rising guitar prodigy, appeared just as Eddie was redefining rock guitar, creating inevitable comparisons. The prank with Randy's foot pedal, literally stomping on a photo of Eddie, symbolized a playful yet psychologically impactful form of disrespect. Even though Eddie publicly maintained composure, privately he internalized the slight, demonstrating how professional rivalry and personal admiration can coexist in tension. Media comparisons amplified this, intensifying feelings of competition and subtle resentment. This paragraph reveals Eddie's emotional complexity, showing that even musical icons experience envy, frustration, and the sting of perceived slights. It emphasizes that human emotions, like pride and sensitivity, shape professional relationships regardless of talent. Eddie's inability to fully reconcile with Rhodes's presence illustrates that rivalry, respect, and admiration are intertwined, and that even genius musicians carry vulnerabilities. The paragraph ultimately humanizes Eddie, portraying him not just as a technical virtuoso, but as someone navigating deep personal emotions alongside public success. 5. Tom Scholz, the engineer who crossed the line. This paragraph centers on the tension between respect, competition, and creative ownership. Eddie's issue with Tom Scholz wasn't about skill, it was about personal violation. Scholz's near-exact replication of Eddie's solo, paired with dismissive behavior, crossed the line between professional respect and emotional disregard. Eddie's attempts to seek acknowledgement were ignored, highlighting how creative work is intimately tied to identity, pride, and personal validation. The paragraph underscores that disrespect can occur even in professional spaces where talent is evident, showing that recognition is a core human need. Eddie's sensitivity to acknowledgement and fairness is emphasized, framing the grudges not as petty disputes, but as deeply personal matters. This story humanizes Eddie by portraying him as an artist protective of his craft and identity. It also illustrates the broader theme. Emotional validation and respect often matter as much as technical skill in professional relationships, and being denied that can leave lasting scars on even the most accomplished musicians. 6. Rick Derringer, the veteran who pushed. Eddie Too Far, Rick Derringer's story, highlights the importance of boundaries and decisive action. Eddie initially admired Derringer, respecting his experience and style. However, Derringer repeatedly played Eddie's solos live, copying phrasing and melodies precisely. This crossed a clear line between inspiration and theft. Eddie's attempts to address it were ignored, which deepened the sense of disrespect. Unlike other grudges, this led to immediate action. Eddie removed Derringer from the tour, showing that even the happiest, most generous musician has limits when personal and creative integrity is violated. This paragraph emphasizes Eddie's insistence on respect and boundaries, demonstrating that admiration and professionalism must coexist with personal standards. Derringer's repeated disregard transformed admiration into resentment, illustrating the human need to defend one's creative identity. The story humanizes Eddie, showing that genius does not exempt one from enforcing limits, and that maintaining respect and dignity is essential, even in high-pressure creative environments. Final thoughts. This paragraph synthesizes Eddie Van Halen's emotional journey, and underscores the human side of his legendary persona. Each interaction, whether through dismissal, silence, rivalry, or imitation, shaped Eddie's private view of the people he once admired. These experiences highlight that even the most successful, revered musicians are affected by how their peers treat them. The paragraph humanizes Eddie, revealing a sensitive, reflective figure navigating admiration, betrayal, and respect. His secret blacklist demonstrates the delicate balance between envy, recognition, and personal boundaries. It emphasizes that emotional experiences, not just technical skill, profoundly shape a musician's identity and legacy. The narrative leaves readers with an understanding of Eddie as a thoughtful, deeply human figure, whose life and career were influenced not only by his prodigious talent, but also by personal interactions and emotional experiences. The paragraph illustrates that the life of a rock icon is a mix of musical genius and deeply felt human relationships, both positive and negative.